Welcome back, everybody, to the second episode of Existential Dad. I'm Mike Cannon. If you're unfamiliar with the show, if this is the first time you're watching it, it's a dad show, a little bit atypical. I love talking dad stuff. I'm more of the philosophy, kind of existential, abstract, what it all means type of dad talk, not necessarily technique because that gets in the weeds and people start arguing. I'm a stand-up comedian based out of New York. If you're unfamiliar with me, check out my specials all over on this page on YouTube. Every episode is going to revolve around one question that I pose to my social media followers and or to the viewers of this show once it launches. For the show, we're going to discuss both your answers, my opinion on the topic. It's kind of a discussion, but one person. I'm narcissistic. So this episode is all about staying present. Are you able to? That's the question I posed to the social media was, are you able to stay present as a parent? And if not, what are you doing to get there? And I think, for me personally, it's a constant battle, just like anything else. It's one of those things where I'm good at for like a week. By the way, is that weed whacker going to be absolutely brutal? What were we talking about? Staying present, you know? Sometimes you're trying to, and in the middle of it, something else happens that requires you to then be present elsewhere. But that's what this episode is all about. As a parent, staying present. Are you capable of it? We all are juggling, constantly juggling. Is there anything that we're not juggling? Responsibility, relationships, jobs, health, finances, whatever it may be. We got a lot of plates spinning, so it's really difficult, for me at least, to stay really present in the moment at all times. And it's a constant reminder to myself throughout the day. I have a problem with my phone. My job requires me to be on it, but it's almost like I'm a 700-pound person saying, but I gotta eat. I have to. It's required to maintain my nutrition. It's like, yeah, but you might have overdone it a little bit. Now you're getting forklift out of your house. And it's like me, I'm just, my eyes are blurry because I've been looking at pixels all day, and my son, barely registers as a full human being. He almost seems like a hologram. But, that's my main struggle with it is like I'm on social media. I'm trying my best to do the dump or to do the post and dump. So, do what I got to do, have that isolated time for social media, and then kind of just leave my phone for what it is. Obviously, I'm going to be texting throughout the day, emails, whatever. Your job is a responsibility that should be maintained. Despite, I don't know if other people feel that, but like, I remember right when I first became a parent, I couldn't believe that it was legal that parents had to work. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't believe that with all that is required to maintain life from the fragile stages of birth, the idea that I also had to live this secondary life of earning money was just so crazy to me that I couldn't believe people have been doing it, since the inception of humanity. But it's also one of those things where you watch the birth of your child and you're also like, then how did we just decide men are in charge after that? Did you just watch what happened? How am I calling the shots and that fucking thing just came out of that one?
What?
Like, what are we doing? I can grow a shit. That's literally the only thing I can grow inside of me, and cancer. Women can grow that plus a babe. Wow. How about that? My wife has grown 2 dicks inside of her, which means that she's had more dicks than me. She's more of a man than I am. That's crazy to consider. So staying present, as you can see, I have a very difficult time maintaining and staying on task. But the phone thing is very big, and that's going to be an ongoing thing, I think, that we're all going to talk about on this show, and hopefully not to a point where it makes you enraged. But, it is a struggle. It feels addictive. It very much feels in the same way that I had a tough time giving up drinking. I'm having a tough time separating myself from my phone, but also, like, I didn't have to have a beer with every set that I do, in the sense that I have to post a clip to just sell tickets. So it's a little bit different. But either way, that's my main culprit in terms of is staying present. My other main culprit is my mental illness. That brings me away, and especially it's when I've been depressed twice, like inactive depression. I deal with it. It's a low hum at all times. But active depression, I've been twice since my son has been born, And both times was made worse by my disappointment that I was experiencing depression with that much love in my life. Like, I was so fucking bummed out that I could look at unconditional love at this person that saw me as like his hero, his everything, everything I've ever wanted to be to somebody. And I still couldn't pull myself out of this like doldrums, this sadness, this heaviness, this feeling of just like, man, I am not doing a good job when there's like tangible evidence in my face to the contrary. So that like that takes me out of being a present father. And I do have to give myself credit though, because as I'm feeling sad or as I'm going through the active depression, it's just the best way I can say it. I know people have a problem with calling it sad, but it's the best way I can say it. As I'm feeling that kind of active sadness, I'm fighting. Like, I'm in my head. When I'm down there playing cars with my son, I'm literally just batting negative thoughts out of my head actively as I'm rolling this car across the hardwood floors. I'm just like, you don't want to kill yourself. No way. Like, yeah, so what? Your parent, you're no good. You're a piece of shit. You're all this. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like, so it's all these things that are going on at once and I'm trying my best to maintain presence. But of course, it's really difficult while I'm fighting off those voices, and it's both voices from it's a trifecta perfect storm of like self-imposed looping thoughts of me just like succumbing to my own OCD and green lighting it and allowing it to take me over. To the way in which my parents spoke to me as a child. So that's just, a constant looping you stink in my head. And then 3 is like confirmation bias can take you into some dark places on social media. So if I'm feeling low about myself, which is the massive majority of the time, I'll then seek out affirming commentary that tells me that I am the worst. So it's like this whole fucking snowball of shit that as I'm trying to parent, I'm then getting looped. And then I feel bad about being so selfish in my own head that I'm allowing myself to jerk off to these thoughts of like, and this recreational thought of sad. You know what I mean? Because that's what it is. It's a recreational thought of sad where I'm allowing my brain to play with depression. And that's just the ultimate, like, that to me almost feels like excess, like the ultimate excess. I'm living on a satin pillow like a shaved cat and being fed fucking, wet food. What? Yeah. That's my idea of decadence is a cat.
Do, do you think that that it's like a catch-22 you were talking about before about how you have all this free time to raise your kids, but
Yeah.
also that free time is what gives you the ability to ruminate
Yeah.
and live in it, so if potentially if you're busier,
Yeah.
you might not have these thoughts, but then you wouldn't have that time with your kid.
Right.
Is that something that enters your mind too?
Well, the idea is to be busy with your kid. So the idea is to be busy with work and then busy with your kid, but then that also can make you feel burned out. So it's hard, man. It's a constant balance of things. But yeah, like comedy is navel gazing, especially the type of comedy that I do, which is like personal auditing. And I'm going through my bullshit as if it's world news. You know what I mean? So it's that's the only way I know how to do it. That is also probably a product of, my narcissism and the way that I view the world. But it's also, I don't know, again, like I said, it allows me to both be present and then takes me out of the present. So and then takes me into navel gazing, and then I have to push myself out of that to live more outside of my head. So it's just I mean, I yell at myself audibly throughout the day. I'll go, that's OCD. I'll literally say that when I'm looping, when I'm constantly thinking and I'm just stuck in the same exact fucking thought for, look at my phone and a half hour later, I'm still on the same thing. I'll be like, that's OCD or shut up. Like, just shut up, which I know. I mean, is that indicative of how I've been spoken to my entire life? Just shut up, Michael. But I don't know. How do you take yourself? Do you get that? Do you feel looping? Do you get like Stav you and then you, the viewer? If you have that, I'd like to hear your feedback.
go for a walk or I have to do something
Yeah,
because I have a similar problem where I'll fall into just depressive thinking or being on my phone too much. And then there's always the thing that comes with social media where I'm comparing, where I'm at to my
totally.
peers,
Yeah,
other
yeah,
videographers.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't have a kid, but if I don't fill up my time, I'll get severely fucking depressed.
Yeah, no, 100%. But that's the thing is also, I have to learn that, or not I have to learn, I have learned, I have to actively remind myself that also doing nothing with my son is doing something. Like hanging out with him is doing something. I don't like, I can count the times on my hand where I just like casually went around with my dad. Like even to stores or whatever. Like it was always, all right, dad's got to do something. He'll be back later. Like that's the type of shit. He just didn't want company, didn't want to like even helping him around the house. Like everything that I over explained to my son to the point where he's like, he's 5 and he's like, another fucking dad lesson. Like I get it. But it's my dad would have me help him build stuff. And by help, I mean I would be upstairs, he'd be building something downstairs. And then, like, out of nowhere, blood curdling, Michael, come down here. And I'm just like, a run, full blown, fight or flight, just running downstairs. And I'm like, what? What's going on? And he's like, pick up this screw. Then I'd pick up the screw at his foot and I'd hand it to him. And he'd be like, that's all. And then I'd have to walk back upstairs just confused over whether or not I was an actual help or a hindrance. And it wasn't quick enough. And it was always like under duress. It was, so I view a lot of my casual time with my son as doing something because it's for me at least, and maybe since he's new to the planet, he doesn't want to be doing nothing, and we do plenty of something. But for me at least, those are like that's like my Mufasa Simba moment, man. I'm laying down with my fucking kid, and the breeze is going, and we're having a good time, and that's like that moment is like what everything is, what it's all about.
So Leanne says, I have moments. I love having chats with them, enjoying experiences and cooking together. But there are moments I need to mentally tap out. I just can't all day.
Yeah, I mean that's fair too. Is each person like your kid your kids have to learn boundaries, and those things are also really heartbreaking to teach them because it's kind of like organized neglect. And it starts with even sleep training. You know what I mean? Like if you do sleep training, which again, this is not a debate show. I don't give a shit what you do, what you think is the right way, what you don't. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing things out there. So please, I take that parenting shit to wherever that is. That's not what this is. If you sleep train your kid though, it is like organized neglect. It is kind of just like, all right, well, let them cry it out for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is. And that's kind of the first subconscious boundary that you're teaching them as a parent, where it's like, hey, we're going to be here, but we're also not going to be here all the time. So you're going to have to learn how to self soothe. You're going to have to learn how to take care of yourself on some level. And that's the first lesson as an infant. So it's like, you also can then do that as a toddler or as they're growing up. It's like, hey, man, if I need a fucking hour or I need a half hour as a parent and I feel like I'm going to blow my top if I don't get it, you are much better suited to be their parent with that break than you are if you power through. It's like getting a divorce. It's like, do you want to be a nightmare couple in front of your fucking kid for their entire lives? You know what I mean? You want to fight with them. You want to teach them that that's what a loving relationship is. That's how you communicate. That's how you problem solve. That's how you get through conflict. No. So you gotta create. Am I being preachy? I don't want to be preachy. I'm just I'm like I'm one of those people that gets very excited about things that I just discovered. So if it comes across like I'm telling you what to do, just know that I'm an idiot and I'm just saying something I just learned and I'm fired up. That might be the fucking, by the way, that might be the actual like trailer of the show. I just get fired up. I'm an idiot. But it is those boundaries where it's like you're just better suited once you have that moment to regulate your feelings, and it also teaches them to step away from conflict because I've had my wife and I, we both come from like parenting backgrounds where like It was a chaos house. People are arguing, they're screaming, shit's getting thrown. Like it's that. So our natural inclination, and we've known each other since we were in 5th grade, so we've gone through every iteration of relationship and have actually grown together. It's like we used to fucking fight. We used to scream. We used to not know how to how to set a boundary and like walk away and decompress. We used to not like we used to think if you walked away that was abandonment and that you were never coming back, and that was a huge issue for both of us. So it like it's it's just part of learning. Every time that you learn how to do something, it's pain. So every single time that you learn how to communicate and learn how to create boundary and tell your kid like, "Hey, I need a minute here." You're going to see their face like you're going to watch their heartbreak on their face, and it's going to like do something to you that makes you want to push through and be like, "Forget it, forget it." But if you need it, if you require that boundary, then you just got to do it. And that heartbreak is part of life. It sucks, man. You got to watch your kids fucking heartbreak a lot. And it sucks because you don't want it to, because you remember what that felt like. But it's also a part of going through the whole process.
Do you refrain from stepping in certain moments?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like socially a lot. So I'll be there for my son after certain social things, but now he's going to be 5, so I let him roam on the playground. This is the first time where I'm like a border collie. I'm not a seeing eye dog anymore. I'm a border collie. I just got to keep him in the yard. That's it. So I'm just that's kind of my thing where I'm watching him, and there's some moments where he gets into like, a conflict with a kid. And there's some kind of moment where if I was as much of a helicopter parent as I want to be, as my natural impulse is to be, I would jump right in and be like, "What's going on here? Don't talk to each other that way." Like blah blah blah. But that's like my human inclination to control shit, and there's no controlling it. Is That's not teaching him anything. He's going to go through life not being able to control how people respond or react to him. So what better way to put him through the fire than in a low stakes situation like the park? So I've had to step in later when it like actually, because other kids, not other kids, but like it'll get like tense, like they'll rip a toy or whatever. It's my son as well, and I'll have to step in and just be like, "Oh, okay, okay, whatever," and then we'll talk after, like once he decompresses from the situation, because that's a thing I've had to learn too, is like my need to please people and fix, coming from a chaotic household, is deeply embedded in me to the point where when my son is upset, I need him to feel okay right away. But I know that's not how people learn. Like you can't, in the same way that you can't talk to somebody who's blackout drunk, you have to wait for them to sober up and the next day be like, dude, you can't suck my dick again. You can't wake me up by blowing me, dude. You just can't do that. That was not cool. It's the same way that you can't bad transition, but it's the same way where if your kid is throwing a fucking fit, you can't get down on their level and be like, "Listen, you got to calm down, get your act together, fly right, blah blah blah." They don't see you. They don't hear you. They just got hit by a frag grenade of toddler emotions. So their whole world is just, and they're just trying to navigate that while livid. So I just let my son feel it out, which my parents didn't do again, which is why I have a lot of like, a lot of fucking electrocuted cat energy. But, so I'm trying my best to allow, trying, trying.
Mike responded with, "You have to make yourself present, no matter what else is going on in your life, and most times your children don't know what you're going through, and it's our job to put our brave face on and put them first."
Agree. Yeah, I agree. I agree to an extent, especially when they're young, of course, because there's so many things that like, even like interpersonally, like my son will know somebody that's a part of our life, right? That's a good friend, or they're a part of the circle for a while, and then they venture off and do their own thing, and their involvement socially is kind of just like ebbs and flows. So it's interesting if it's like a negative friend thing or whatever, like you're having a problem with a friend, you obviously can't or don't want to let them in on that because there's no sense in like, opening them up into your adult into your adult world of complicated relationships. But there does come a point where, and I don't know when it is, where you start to be a bit more transparent emotionally. And there is transparency emotionally with my son right now in terms of like, hey, I'm having big feelings or mom's having big feelings. I'm feeling like, sad or happy or mad. I just need a moment. Like there's emotional transparency in that way. But I am a product of put on a brave face. Don't let them know what's going on. And then you hear screams behind a door. So I it's granted I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm just saying that there was no communication what that meant, what that was. Is that adult feelings? Is that child feelings? Like what uh, should I expect that? Like, anything like that. And then as I grew up and I started to experience my own mental health shit, I had no idea. I thought I was alone. I thought I was the first person in my family to feel anxiety or depression. And I found out in like my 30s that it's been a long standing proud Irish tradition in our family of sad silent men, you know? And I'm the first one that can't keep his fucking mouth shut. Just can't keep his mouth shut. I bet every man in my family's history from this point, like before this, the only time they've ever cried was at a bar. And I'm the first one to cry on a podcast. That's a much better existence, much prouder heritage to set. uh,
I'm there with you. Unfortunately, I have cried at a bar a couple
oh,
times.
dude, are you kidding? I used to, when I was in college, and I've talked about it before, but I used to literally like fist fight the wind. I'd walk out to baseball fields and just be like just start swinging at God. It was just pathetic. So this is actually far healthier than anything I've ever done.
So MC says,
Oh, MC, what a
I'm a full time single parent. I stay present by remembering when my kid responds to life. It's not personal or an attack on me. I also give myself some grace and some space to make mistakes. You could do everything right, but when your kid is grown up, they're still going to say, you didn't do X, Y, or Z, that I need it. I show up authentically messy, human that I am, and I try my best. That is all that is all you could do.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds a lot like acceptance, where it's just like, hey, this is going to be the thing. It is funny. It's like, you are going to mess up. That was a bug. You are going to mess up. You are going to fall short. Your kids will have problems with the way you went about this. It's just it's the natural course of things, and you want them to. It's the same way as me being like, oh, that special I released 6 years ago. That's exactly how I want to do comedy exactly right now. It's like, if I haven't grown since then what the fuck? What are we doing? You know? So you want to have those growing pains and those shortcomings, I guess, and hopefully over time through communication, you can either right the wrong or at least talk through them to reach a point of peace. But what was the first part that he said?
I'm a full single parent. I stay present by remembering when my kid responds to life.
Oh, so that's another thing. One really great thing that my friend Rob told me, and this was the best. I don't ask for advice, and that's probably because I don't I don't trust men. But father figures, authority figures. But it's I never feel comfortable enough to ask it, but my friend Rob gave me unsolicited, and I'm thankful for it, unsolicited advice right when I had my first son, where he's like, hey man, anytime you're feeling like really, really frustrated and like you're about to snap or you're exhausted and you feel like you're at the complete end of your rope and you have nothing left to give, look down at them and realize they'll never be this small again. Like this day, this moment, this small, they'll never be that ever again in your entire life. And that thought exercise is the one thing that actually helps keep me present and like knocks me back into like a okay. I mean, I still do it. My son's not even 5, so I hope never to even grow out of it, but, like, I'll grab him and just, like, smell his hair. Like, I literally will just grab just to remember, like, imprint upon me this moment, this age, this, like, just like, give me a fucking hug. I want to like memorize what your small back felt like in a hug. And I know that sounds nuts, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to catalog every single day. But though that, like, even just that activity is like enough to keep me present just for a second. So the thing is, the thing that is consistent, that is affirming to me, and then hopefully affirming to whoever's watching. Hopefully, there's people watching. Is that the phone is obviously like a pretty consistent message amongst people. Is that everybody struggles with it, and it's because like not only is it an addictive thing just from what it gives to our brain and all that, but it's tied to our well-being. And because of the access that we've given people, they feel entitled to that access and responsiveness now too. It's like people text work shit at 11 p.m. and they're like, "Oh, you didn't see that?" And you're like, "No, I fucking saw it, but I was watching Alone." And dreaming about disappearing in in Alaska by myself. But, it it's a constant battle, it seems like, for a lot of people. So I'll say, this is a tactic that Nikki uses. She leaves her phone in another room with set timers to play and then another to do work. That's actually pretty good, where it's like, hey, I'm going to set like a 20-minute timer. Let's draw something together. Let's do this puzzle. Let's do whatever. Once that wraps up, then I got to do work. I'll set a timer for that. And then once that over, it's a little bit regimented and a bit on the spectrum. But, I actually like it because I'm not the most, I'm not the most organized guy, much to my wife's chagrin. And I'm more of a free range, ebb and flow, feel it out type of parent, which basically means I leave all the scheduling to my wife. So she, I've gotten better at it, but that is another step that I actually am probably going to have to take, especially with another one, because it's like my organizational skills have gone up tenfold since having one. It's going to have to go it's gonna have to be crazy out in these streets for two. I can't even imagine, just like between childcare, school pickup, extracurricular, feeding schedules, dirty diaper, all that shit is just work, all that stuff. So it's gonna be constant. But yeah, another one. Not on my phone or social media as much. I'm trying to make sure take night shifts to spend as much alone time as I can with them. And side note, my wife got pregnant at Skankfest. That's awesome. What did you name your kid? Chlamydia? Like you have to, right? At that point, or Golden Nugget, or Fremont Street at 3 a.m. on acid. That's kind of a long name, a lot of hyphens. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like just everybody's working through it. It's a constant battle to stay present. But I think the point, not the point of this show, but I do hope that like it's one of those things that makes people feel better about everybody's fighting a good fight. It's not just it's making me feel better. So at least there's that. You guys might just feel awful, but I'm really getting a lot out of this.